Good afternoon, Frank.
Hello, Professor.
So apart from the fact that something happened today to put off the time when we'll be able to start colonizing another planet, the main thing that's in the news is the impeachment of the president of Brazil,
Yes.
which seems to me, I'd be interested to see how you think about this, to be yet another example of the sort of thing we've already been talking about with Trump and Corbyn. It's the people who supported the impeachment of Rouseff were the people who were fed up with government. And because, as far as I can understand, Dilma Rouseff had not done anything serious enough to be impeached.
I agree with you.
But what she had done was, for the ordinary person, very similar to all sorts of things which are corruption, that the government has been more and more guilty of, or some parts of the government have been more and more guilty of for decades. And they're just fed up with it.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not so sure whether the popular upsurge in feeling in a quote-unquote democracy like Brazil has a straight line of transmission from the people to the oligarchically controlled Brazilian Senate. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't know. I don't have experience on the ground in Brazil, but there certainly were a lot of street demonstrations. And if the street demonstrations have any effect on the Senate, then it could have been a factor.
It certainly could have. It certainly could have. Well, there would be another one that has fallen. It's like a forest full of felled trees.
But the problem is that it didn't really change the government.
No, not at all.
So it's not solving the problem.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. I don't remember how long it is before their next election, but it's not immediate anyway.
No, it's not immediate. The other thing that I've noted as well is the economic signals in Britain, of all places, perked up in the month of August. Their purchase managing index jumped way beyond anybody's expectations. And this is on the heels of yesterday's announcement by Theresa May when she convened her cabinet at Chequers that she said there's no going back. We're definitely leaving. There's no back door to staying.
And no, it's very interesting that I don't know whether you saw what The Economist had to say about it probably last week. But if you look at what's happened economically in Europe and England or Great Britain since the end of June, it looks as though England is doing better.
Well,
however, if you then take into account the way currency evaluations have changed, you find that, in fact, everybody's doing just the same.
Right. It's a big help when your currency is devalued 25%. So, in terms of exports.
Although the currency has gone up again now, it's $1.32 today. It's been going up and down the last week or so.
Yeah. What do you think of prospective President Trump's trip to Mexico?
I'm surprised that we haven't heard more from Mexico about this, actually. I think that they're just biding their time. They'll take advantage of something later. But the American election is very strange, and it's very difficult to see how things are going to work out over the next, what have we still got 3 months, less than 3 months now.
Yeah, there's about 2 months. The other thing that came up since we last spoke is there really does now seem to be a intention by Russia to influence the elections in this country.
Well, Russia is doing a lot of interference in other countries, and one wonders how many people are working on this in Russia, because it takes a lot of man hours to manage to do all the things that the Russians seem to be doing. And it's true that Putin was the head of the KGB, so he's probably got the KGB working for him. But the email interference, which presumably there's some truth in, and what he's been doing with Iran, and with Russia, with Turkey, as well as Europe and America. It's really quite amazing how much is going on that Russia has been a party to.
Well, I would be very surprised if, given the supposed American capability in cyber warfare, if John Kerry has not had a phone conversation with Sergei Lavrov and said, listen, if we smell you interfering in this election, we're going to turn the lights out in Moscow. I'm not kidding you. I mean, that capability exists, and if anybody has it, it's the American intelligence services. I mean, somebody has to make a very clear line in the sand here, I would think.
Yes, but it's a very complicated situation.
It is.
And it's one thing for both sides to make threats. It's another thing to see what actually would be carried out.
Now, did you also notice the news story today about the supposed secret favors that the Americans agreed to provide the Iranians in exchange for their consent to the nuclear deal?
This has been going on for some time, and I'm afraid I'm very suspicious of any news like this, because as far as I can see, America has not got used, the people who speak for America and who are behind these these new pieces of news have not got used to the idea that America has spent 50 years since, or more than that, since the end of the Second World War, quite happily telling the rest of the world what to do. And it's not working anymore. And the reason Iran had a revolution was, it was a revolution not against the Shah, it was a revolution against America.
You're correct. You're correct.
But nobody in Washington seems to understand that.
Or they've forgotten it.
Well, I wonder whether they understand it.
I don't think they do.
Because you never see it mentioned on this side of the Atlantic.
No. In Iran, is the revolution very much present day? Is it in people's minds, in public media, and
very much so? Yes. And what I mean, the most important thing for everybody in Iran is that Iran is an independent nation that has to be dealt with on an equal basis. And so they won't. I'm not sure the best way to say this, but everything that comes up, it's a question of, well, is this something other states can do or not? And if it's something other states can do, then it's up to Iran to decide whether they want to do it or not. It's not something that they can be told they shouldn't be doing.
You have a point, and you can readily see their point. When does the day come when they're allowed to take a seat at the table with everybody else?
Yeah. So. And I mean, even this business of nuclear energy, if Pakistan can have nuclear energy, why can't Iran have nuclear energy?
No.
And India, let alone North Korea.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was some more news from there this week too, but it's too much. It's just too much. No, I find it very interesting what's happening, in that you do see these institutions that are standing in front of the globalization tidal wave, and they clearly are about to get flattened by it, and that they don't know what to do about it.
And of course, the other question all the time is, where's China in all this? And Xi Jinping is, I think, having a difficult time at the moment. And he's going to be there for another, 5.5 years or 5 years, I think. And he's become very much more authoritative and taken over much more power than his recent predecessors have done. And one gets the impression that he's beginning to have difficulty carrying out his programs. And yet China, of course, is becoming more and more important in world affairs all the time, because I forget now how many years it is since China became very obviously the second largest economy in the world. It's not that long.
No.
So we're not used to it yet. And it's also at a time when there are such serious financial problems in the world as a whole. China's enormous debt burden, which could be very serious for the world economy generally. Europe's debt problem. And of course, the American housing problem, which is what led to the big downturn in
2008.
2008 was really when it started, although we started to be worried about it before then.
Yeah.
There's what's interesting about the current situation is that China, Europe, and America all have very serious financial problems, and yet they don't agree politically on what's going to happen. And they're never going to solve all the global economic problems unless they can talk politically.
No, they probably won't even be able to make much of a start on the global economic problems. And it's funny because Obama is right now on his way to the G20 conference in China to discuss global economics.
Yeah.
And there was a proverbial canary in the coal mine yesterday when the South Korean shipping company Hanjin Shipping filed for bankruptcy. They're the largest container line in the world because of the decrease in trans-Pacific container traffic. They ran out of money. So, I mean, that's largely due to the decrease in cross-Pacific trade coming from China. Apparently, even a little bit can be enough to knock the profit margins out of a big company like that. So, well, we'll have to wait and see what emerges from the G20 meetings.
Which we'll find out next week. Yeah.
We will. Thank goodness Donald Trump did not choose that as his destination. So, all right, Professor Spooner, thank you very much. Welcome back to school.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.